Welcome back.
Hi, guys.
It's, as always, your hosts, Allie,
And Alexis.
and welcome back to Green Thread, where we tie the environmental thread more to your life and hopefully get you to live greener as you pull on that green thread. Wow.
Look at us go. All green. all green. Wait.
No, literally.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow. Look
This
at us.
wasn't planned. In fact, we just realized this, guys. So this is going to be a little more of a unusual episode, as we're not going to start with a fun fact because our topic is a little bit more dreary than most of them, and I feel like if we were to add a fun fact, it would desensitize the actual issue, as this is not a joking matter.
Yeah, it'd be a bit tone deaf of us to make it fun,
Yeah. But that's okay. This is one of those topics and subjects that I feel like is important to touch on regardless of its persona, but it's informational enough to include and be as important as everything else we've talked about thus far.
Absolutely. It's very, very important. So today we're going to be talking about animal testing, specifically on cosmetics. At least we're going to be focusing the majority on cosmetics because that's where it mostly happens. That's the industry where you kind of see it the most.
Yeah. And when I was doing most of my research, I didn't realize just how far back that it was used.
Yeah.
And that made me even more sad because it shows just how long that humans have prioritized themselves over everything else. In fact, the first time that it was said to be used, which this is one of those things that we don't necessarily know for a fact, if it's how far ago that it was, but I found things back to 300 BC.
I found that too.
Really?
I found that too, which is that's so crazy that we even found that. But anyway.
I know. And the fact that it even happened, or that we project that it happened, because that was when vivisections, or the practice of surgical procedures on animals prior to humans, that first started, which I guess back then, they really did have to be careful. And we'll get into specific vaccines that may have been produced because of animal testing, which is why it was important for them to start out that way. But at the same time, I don't know, I feel like they could have had an alternative method.
Yeah, definitely. It's a sticky ethical situation.
Exactly.
This whole episode's going to be, like that image of the guy on the train tracks, you know, a whole ethical thing. You have to kind of decide for yourself. But
exactly. When I was trying to figure out who was the first person or I guess scientist to try out and normalize these medical procedures, I saw Aristotle and then another one called Erasistratus. They were both from the early Greek. They were Greek physician scientists. And they were the first ones, I guess, that were known to start out testing procedures on animals, which is where vivisections became more normalized in culture. And then it proceeded, and then in early 12th century, there was an Arabian physician. I'm not really going to say the name, but I will put it up somewhere because it's just hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do that to this person, but he introduced animal testing as a method to test surgical procedures prior to humans, which is what the whole point of vivisection is. But that was when they introduced the majority of not exotic, but a variety of animals that they were using in their procedures. In fact, the fact that that's in the 12th century and the first law that was passed that protected animals didn't even happen until 1960s.
1966.
Yep, exactly.
The Animal Welfare Act was passed in 1966. That was the first one in the United States. That was the first effort made by the government to put a stop to animal testing.
Go Lyndon Johnson.
Yes. Thanks for that.
No, really. I mean, all that really did was regulated transport and handling of animals, helped kind of the care for animals in procedures. It also required labs to register under the USDA. So it just added a little bit of a regulatory framework around said, stuff, for lack of better terms, but it wasn't exactly something that stops it, because even though animal testing was not ever required and still isn't required to this day, it obviously was something that people were too scared to start just doing on humans, so they always had it around no matter if they needed it or not.
Exactly. And when I was doing my research, I didn't look a whole lot into this, so please don't take this sentence and run with it. I'm begging you. But I saw a thing that said that there are some loopholes to get around animal testing. So, for example, in the United States, animal testing or animals are protected to a certain degree. But in other countries, I saw where animal testing is required for a product to be put out. I don't know if that's dated information or, just baloney. But that's how kind of, even if a company, if a company sells globally, they may claim to be cruelty-free in somewhere like the United States, where the animals are protected and they're not supposed to be doing that. But they may be doing it in other countries across the globe because it is required to be proven in some way to be safe, or to, at least to humans, to be safe to humans. So that's kind of something that I found, which is interesting, which I'd love to look more into that, since I didn't dig far enough. But yeah.
Yeah, and not only with like external products, but also like medicinal properties is one of the first like reasons why they even looked to animals as like a more humane way of testing different medical procedures and or medicines in general. In the late 1930s, there was one of the first like big events that happens, or a big crisis in terms of like outbreaks of disease or illness, was when there was a poisonous sulfa drug that was being marketed to the public that they didn't realize was poisonous, but they just put, I think it was like a strawberry flavor on top of it just to hide that, I can't remember, there's like sulfonamide. Don't quote me there, I'll put it somewhere. But that was used in a drug, and they didn't know that it had poison in it until it was found, and they had to pass some different laws to make sure they were testing animals first before they gave stuff to the public. But then it happened again in the late 1950s with what was called a wonder drug, which was thalidomide. It was given usually as a tranquilizer, but also was given to pregnant women to relieve their symptoms. And it ended up causing birth defects, like babies were born without missing limbs and things like that.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Well, just hearing you say in the same sentence, this is a tranquilizer, or used to be a tranquilizer. It was also given to pregnant women. I was like, whoa, that should not be in the same realm at all.
I know. I guess it's just because like in recent medicine, like they have plenty of different ways that they can, make a pregnant woman feel more relaxed, and or like their symptoms aren't as bad, or they're not suffering from pain as much. I guess they work the same way as a tranquilizer once did, but it's just like we have kind of scoped it around like the health stuff that goes into it.
They had the idea. They had the idea of it. It's like they had the right idea, wrong execution, because they were just trying to jump the gun. Because honestly, modern medicine is not that old. Or just, our modern medical practices, medicine is so new. And I mean, that's a whole other topic, not even, we could relate that back to the environment, but just, that is so, everything in healthcare is really, really fascinating. It's super new. So,
and it's crazy. As soon as like it became, I guess, more knowledge like was performed behind it, or people started getting a little bit more familiar with the practice of healthcare and medicines, and animal testing became even more prominent. Thankfully, there became some like forms of resistance by the public through many different organizations. But before we name those, I wanted to go over like exactly what started those movements, which was what they call the 3R principle. The replacement, which is replacing animals with non-animal methods; reduction, reducing of number of animals used; and refinement, which is refining those experimental procedures. These were the 3R principle is applied for like exploring stricter regulations on animal testing. And then because of those principles being put in place is when, these different organizations were formed on the base foundation of those. Like PETA were really, up to date with PETA, the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, in case you didn't know what that stood for. That started in 1980. And then there also was cruelty-free international. They have like an entire like thing that's still up. We can post all their links below. And then one that I thought was kind of cool is a global issue, as we kind of mentioned before, but ECAEA, which is European Coalition to End Animal Experiments. So over in Europe, they have an entire coalition, I think of like 20 different organizations that abide by those principles to make sure that their products are cruelty-free or non-toxic.
Excellent. Yeah. I love that. That's awesome.
Yup. So those are just a couple of the different ways. I don't know if you have any more to list, but those are some of the ones I found of different people who are like, no, we're standing up for animals' rights.
Yeah. And I did find, to go along with that, I did find some programs that or a website that will tell consumers to make more informed choices. So this is kind of, if you don't get anything else from this episode, at least listen to this, because this is something that you can go and do on your own time to make better, more sustainable choices. So there's one called Leaping Bunny. So that's a certification program that has a strict criteria for cruelty-free status, and brands with the Leaping Bunny logo are considered cruelty-free. PETA actually has a cruelty-free shopping guide. And then there's a website called Cruelty-Free Kitty.
Yes, that's what I found.
Yes, yeah, and that can help you find more information and find more brands that are not using animal testing. And I realized that this whole episode, not this whole animal. What am I talking about? This whole episode, we've been saying animal testing, and you may not know what that is, or what does that kind of look like. I just wanted to give a definition in case you weren't aware of what it exactly was. But animal testing is the use of animals in research and experiments to test the safety of products or to study diseases and treatments. So we've talked about it kind of used in medicine, and that's kind of what the history of it is. And more in modern day, it's used to test the safety of products, or to test if there's a reaction in the products, especially in cosmetics and beauty products and things like that. And you know what? I'm not afraid to put some brands on blast right now. So here we go. With animal testing in companies, it's important to look at the parent companies of companies, because a company might say, like a kid company, I guess, if you want to compare it to parent, may say, oh, well, we're cruelty-free, blah, blah. And the parent company might not have anything about cruelty-free policies, or they may be using animal testing. So that then that makes you question that the legitimacy of the cruelty-free statement by the, quote, kid company. But L'Oreal is a massive beauty brand, and they have a lot of kid brands under them. So Garnier, Maybelline, Urban Decay, NYX Cosmetics, lots of beauty brands under L'Oreal. So that is the parent company of them, and they don't necessarily have great cruelty-free policies, or not be very specific about it. Another one is Estee Lauder. I don't know how to say that. I know that brand. I've seen it, but I don't know how to say it. They also own numerous brands like Clinique, MAC. There's a few other ones listed that I'm not really sure, but I can provide this list, link it below. Procter & Gamble. They have a wide range of brands, and some of their kid brands are still associated with animal testing, such as Gillette, Olay, Pantene, Head and Shoulders, Tide, and Crest. That just listed off every product in my bathroom, pretty much.
I know, right?
I won't lie. That basically wiped out my entire product list, my whole grocery list. Let's see. There's even more. I mean, the list goes on, but do your own research, and at the end of the day, there are alternatives to those that you can find. But those, I listed just a whole list of brands that you have all probably at least heard of if you don't own half of what I just listed. So most of the time, what is popular and what's trending, or not even trending, but just what is on the shelves at your main local stores, is not going to be the most sustainable option. So just, maybe think about it next time, and maybe if you're able to, then look into some alternatives.
Yeah, and we can we're going to go over a couple of those in the episode too. So it's not like you're just like, what do I do? Like like Alexis, like, oh my god, all of my products are like this. Yeah. What do I do? Which with finding alternatives to just like everyday products is one thing, because you did give off a lot of examples of places that you can go to find cruelty-free products, which the definition of cruelty-free means not tested on animals. So at least like you have resources that you can use to just find those without having to do like extra research. Somebody's already done it for you. But I find it kind of reassuring that they've found alternatives for like medical procedures too, bringing that back in, of like ones that they use on a mostly everyday basis, more like normal procedures that they found that they have different methods they can use to reduce, their animal testing. One of them was in vitro, which we've heard with humans, but this one like uses cell cultures or tissues rather than the actual full animal body. Or this one's kind of cool with like new technology is computer modeling, which they'll utilize like computer software to predict like a substance effect. So like toxicity levels of things. And they also have one that's really interesting, and I will definitely insert a picture of this because it looked kind of like the chip from, I don't know if y'all have seen the show, the 100, but they have like a chip that has an infinity symbol on it, and this literally looks just like that, I swear, without like the infinity symbol. But it's called Human on a Chip, and it's technology that develops microfluidic devices that mimic human organs. They'll have a liquid substance within the chip that acts just like blood, and they can like
wow,
and they use it to kind of simulate different areas or different organs of the body. But it literally is just a clear chip with little I don't know what you call those. It's like, kind of like two trees that are connected. Like I said, I'll insert a clip for y'all, but just to describe it, which is really interesting. And then also just like other clinical research helps before using animals. But I, like you were talking about with alternatives of those products, I was like, well, maybe they have some for, because I was thinking of that too, with learning like all the products I have that unfortunately are not cruelty-free. I was like, so then are there alternatives to the other areas in which they use animals for? And there are. So those are a couple of the ones I found. And then I wanted to kind of highlight, again, not to take away from the suffering of these animals and the severity of this issue, because like we said, it's kind of like you have to think of your own like ethical beliefs behind it. I don't think I would ever support animal testing myself, but just as something that could give you a full scope of the issue, there has been some positive outcomes of it.
Yes.
Just for like vaccines for polio, measles.
That was the biggest one that I found, was the polio vaccine. And as we know, I mean, that was a huge issue. Polio was rampant. And without that vaccine, who knows what would have happened if we couldn't, get rid of polio or develop a vaccine quick enough. Anyway.
No, yeah, you're good. Like that's exactly how I felt about it too. I was like, at least, it's not like it's all doom and gloom. There is some positive, even though I will die on the hill that people are not as important as animals. But I do understand with these different diseases and illnesses that had no cure at one time, like somebody needed to find something to help them.
Absolutely.
But that's why we were talking about the importance of these cruelty-free, like the idea of cruelty-free, but also these different products that, potentially don't have as many ethical, manufacturing methods for their products. So that's just knowing and looking for symbols such as, I think there's like usually they'll have cruelty-free just labeled on it. A lot of the new skincare brands that I've seen, like specific celebrities star, they specifically put out cruelty-free on their product, which is really nice, so you don't have to like necessarily question it, though you still should. It never should be something you just read that and think that's what's happening.
Okay.
right, because that's how they greenwash.
Yes, greenwashing.
But it's really important to look for symbols and to do your research on these products too, because finding cruelty-free products is not only good for the environment, it's good for you, because most of the time those, or in fact 99% of the time, those are the products that are using organic stuff or like all natural ingredients, so you're not putting toxins into your body. And therefore, if you do that, you wash them off in the shower, they go down the drain, end up in the soil and the air and everything else. It goes right back into like a cycle to go back into your body. So that's one of the main importance of finding cruelty-free products.
Definitely. And if it's harmful to something else, to an animal, to nature to this world, it's probably going to be harmful to you too. There's so many linkages between what's harmful to an animal and what's harmful to us. And just another thing I wanted to mention too while I'm thinking about it is a lot of the times with animal testing, like even in psychology, there's been a lot of things which those are typically pretty ethical, but it can kind of get close to that line of like, I don't know if we should be doing this or not. And they've used rats and things, animals like that aren't our cute, fuzzy ones that we want to cuddle up with, like a dog or a cat. They'll use rats or mice. So it's important to protect them too, even though they aren't the cute. Maybe they are the cute fuzzy animals you want to cuddle up to. I don't know. That's fine. But I don't know about me personally. But I mean, I still want to protect them, even if it's not, living in my house or my little kiwi, my little baby kitty.
Oh,
baby. Every animal deserves to be protected, and they don't have a voice, so we have to be their voice.
Yep. Now, this is all. Like we said at the very beginning, this is all us telling you information and what we found, and even just introducing you to the idea of how animal testing came to be so that you can make your own, best judgment, not even good judgment, but just like the best judgment you can based on your own morality and how you, like the standards you set for yourself and for the environment, for animals, so that you can make the best judgment when you're going out and buying future skincare products or just any products in general, and just keeping an eye on that just to help you, and also so that maybe you can feel a little more interested in the subject and learn more about it, maybe even get in contact with some of the organizations we mentioned to see if you wanted to like fight for animals' rights as well. You said it perfectly. They don't have a voice, so we have to be their voice, just like we're the voice of the planet.
Yes, we absolutely are. And with that being said, y'all, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching if you're watching us. We have a link tree where we have all of our socials, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. However you can listen to our beautiful voices and see our beautiful faces, then you should do that.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us, though. Keep pulling on the green thread and keep caring. Caring is cool.
Caring is cool.